Hey everybody, welcome back to Movie Master, where we rank, review, trailer react, and talk about movies, TV shows, and video games, and the news about those subjects. Now, welcome back to the channel. This video may be a bit different from the videos you're used to, and this is very different from my last few videos, and I feel like this one will be more stronger than my other ones. Now, remember, even though, yes, Cobra Kai Season 4 has indeed dropped on Netflix, I still feel like that Season 5 has so much ideas that I want to see. Now, all we've seen so far of Season 5 is a logo reveal that will indeed have a V, 5, my favorite number, and maybe the best season. Maybe. Who knows? And all we've seen is leaked photos of them going to Puerto Rico, and that the arcs will go in different areas with the series. Now, this will be a two-part video. This first part will be predictions and all that stuff. The second part will be more talking about different things. We'll be finishing off all the predictions by talking about very different things and a different subject entirely. Okay? So that'll be basically it. This first part, we'll talk about all the predictions and ideas I have, predictions and theories I think, and the next part, we'll talk about the last few predictions, some what can we expect from the next season, and some ideas I think that may make sense to fit into the Cobra Kai's TV show. So, let's get on with it. So, the first one I think I have prediction is Miguel will look for his dad. Now, as we know, Miguel's father was only mentioned once or twice in Season 1 as a throwaway mention. The father is mostly pretty much absent from the series. All we know is that he lives with his mother Carmen Diaz, and his nan slash grandmother Yaya Diaz. That's so far all we know about his family. His father was apparently a very bad man, leading us to believe he was obviously a gangster. I believe, now this is just a prediction or a theory prediction, I don't really know which. I think that Miguel's father was a gang mobster, and he had many enemies. Because, well, what else has an enemy that many enemies? I get that a political leader, but the way he would dress, there's a leaked photo of somebody dressed like a gang mobster, and that would have to be Miguel's father. Because, well, he dresses like one and he looks like one. And in my opinion, he would have been a gang mobster who had a lot of enemies. Carmen Diaz, who was pregnant but did not tell her husband at the time that she wanted him to change, but when he couldn't change due to his enemies, she decided to abandon him, leave him, and divorce him. Basically divorcing him and taking Yaya with him. Her mother, Carmen and her mother fled to America, and pretty much fled New Mexico and fled to America. Even though New Mexico isn't America, but you know what I mean. They probably bounced around and then stayed in one place. Carmen likely refusing to date anybody during that time, wary of what could happen again. And pretty much raised Miguel with the help of her mother, and they pretty much raised Miguel, just the two of them. And she may have dated one or two people just as a fling. After that, she would end up moving to in the Reseda area of the All Valley in Los Angeles, and this is likely where, obviously, he ran into his neighbor, Johnny Lawrence. And that's when his journey would begin. And as far as his father has been mentioned recently in this season. And yeah, I think I can tell why. It was a great, weird idea to tap into his father. I find it a plotline I wasn't really interested in seeing. I can see some fans are obviously interested in Miguel's father. Like, even at one point, I was fascinated about where his dad is. Most notably, the theme of Cobra Kai is where are the fathers. This is most notably a theme that came from the Karate Kid as a growing seed. In the original Karate Kid films, it is implied that Daniel LaRusso's father is no longer there. We then unfortunately find out that he passed away of some unknown sickness. And obviously then Johnny Lawrence's father left him, then he left his son, then Carmen and Yaya fled from Mexico with Miguel in hand, and likely that's just what happened. And the theme of fathers not really being that great to their sons is kind of a theme that happened. Kreese's father has been not even mentioned that much and abandoned them apparently, or got sick and died or something, or died in the World War I or something. But pretty much we don't know anything about the fathers of most of the characters, except for mostly Daniel LaRusso's is the only father besides Miguel's that's gotten that much development over the series. All we know is about this dad is that he was the one that helped give birth to Miguel, and it's likely that he knows, like we already know, another spoiler for the show, Miguel's father doesn't know he exists. So he may have another son, which would make sense for story sense that he would have another son. It would just grow the idea that Miguel does have jealousy issues like Robby did. And in the end of the series, I think I saw Robby and Johnny reconciling. More on that later in the video. But nonetheless, Miguel will likely go looking for his father, and that leads me into my second point. Miguel will likely find his dad, and then through a series of events, it would lead to a big fight breaking out in Mexico. Now, at the end of the series, we saw Miguel leaving the valley to go to New Mexico. And it's likely that obviously Daniel, Samantha, Dimitri, Eli, and the rest of Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fan will be staying back in the valley and staying back there to watch over it. And whilst Johnny and Robby, possibly Robby, traveling off to find Miguel. Now, we know that Miguel will likely find his father, and Miguel's father will not realize who it is, and may even try to manipulate his own son to try and get something. Because, who knows, maybe he's manipulating him. Who knows what happens? Maybe he's manipulating his own son. We don't really know because we haven't seen what it's going to look like. But by the looks of it, it looks like it's going to be a great season. And I really do think it runs the point home that the creators of the show said if you read the script for Season 5 or even watched the show, it would just make your head explode because you hadn't watched Season 4. So yeah, and you can kind of tell Season 5 is starting off a completely new story, where Season 1 through 4 were one continuous story, like a trilogy of films. They were one continuous story. Season 1 and 2 was its own film, Season 3 and 4 was its own film. Whereas now, Season 5 and 6 will be its own storyline. And I believe that's what will happen. And I believe that the father plotline will only be extended to one season. I think the father plotline can only lengthen to one season. And we kind of see Miguel's arc grow. He will sort of morph into a Daniel LaRusso of his generation. A Daniel LaRusso that has the parts of Johnny that are good, and has the good parts of Daniel, but also has his parts that make him his own character. Now, I cannot wait to see what they have in store for Miguel's character. And a lot of people are thinking that Jolo, who plays Miguel Diaz, since he's now been cast as the Beetle in the DCEU, won't be able to appear in Cobra Kai Season 5 that much. It turns out he may have a bigger role, considering that those Puerto Ricans, I think it'll be a half one. Whereas they've done this with TV shows before, where one half takes place in a completely different area and the other half takes place somewhere else. They've done this before with shows a bit, where one part of the team's in one place and another part's in the other. It's kind of a thing that many TV shows have done and attempted to do and then failed. One show that did it was indeed Thomas the Tank Engine. Don't know why out of any sources I was pointing that one out, but they did indeed try that. But overall, it's likely, that Miguel finding his father, and even though Jolo, the actor who plays him, is indeed being the Beetle right now, he already finished his scenes. December 10th was marking the end of Season 5's filming, which they started around July or August, I don't know. There's a few news, I'll talk about that in another video, but they finished filming. They're just now doing post-production, which will likely finish in April this year. Well, not April this year, actually, yeah, it makes sense. I was going to say April next year, but it's January 1st, so it's April this year. I'm still getting used to 2022. It's still really weird saying 2022 now. Instead of it being next year, it's this year. That just sounds a bit weird. But nonetheless, I'm very excited to see where they can go with this, and I'll be very excited to see. Number 3, Johnny will go to New Mexico, and Robby will join him to redeem himself. Now, Robby has been a broken character. He pretty much has a repeated amount of abandonment. His father abandoned him as a young child, and pretty much the only evidence Robby had of his father was the mentionings of him by his mother, and the fact that he had a VHS tape copy of Bloodsport, which is why he likely has a liking for action movies. Possibly. And his mother obviously was a big Swayze fan and made him watch 1,000 different Swayze movies on Patrick Swayze in the movie. Now, it's likely that at the end of Season 4, like I said earlier, I was going to touch on this, Robby and Johnny did indeed heal their relationship. And Robby sunk into Miguel because Miguel has jealousy issues that he can't match up to Miguel can't match up to Robby. But one thing I think Season 5's arc will teach Miguel is that I think it makes sense that Robby will indeed go with Johnny to find Miguel. Because, well, one, sorry about my voice. One, Robby wants to redeem himself. Why not redeem himself by helping his father find Miguel? 2, he will try and reconcile with Miguel. After realizing his mistakes he's made, he'd want to try and redeem himself. So why not go find Miguel? 3, they may finally get to do their vacation trip that they always faked on. Like, Maybe for once they can actually do that whole kind of vacation trip where they do a father and son vacation like Robby faked it to be. And they can finally have a father and son bond that we never get to see before in the series. And it would be nice to see that. You could tell season 2 obviously hinted at that, but the writers knew they couldn't do that right. Right in that moment, they couldn't do a great relationship between Robby and Johnny. So I think it would make sense for that. And it would overall, to finish this off and get into another prediction, it would make more sense for Johnny and Robby to go find Miguel. If Johnny and Robby are there, if Johnny is going to find Miguel, because obviously they said it at the end of season 4, basically he's going to go find Miguel to convince him. And Robby being there, Johnny and Robby will make him realize that even though Robby is Johnny's son by blood, it doesn't mean that Miguel isn't his son, isn't like a son to him. Miguel is like a second chance for Johnny in life. He was a second chance he got. And he didn't blow it. He may have gone knocked down, but he didn't blow his second chance by any means. He kept his chance and he had a bit of a hold of that second chance by one finger. But he allowed it to pull up another 3 fingers, and then the fourth, and then he lifted himself back up and stood high and tall. And I think that would make sense for the context of the season, and I think there'll be a half and half thing. So, be exciting to see what they do with that. Number 4, Tory will try to mend things with Sam and may even turn and become a good guy. Now, this is fascinating because I think it may likely be a 2-season plotline. Like, while I would love it to be 1 season, Samantha and Tory both have baggage with them. I do believe Robby and Miguel could become friends, but I'd like it better as for now in season 5, they just reconciled. They didn't become big besties. They reconciled and fought beside each other, but they didn't become friends. Tory and Sam should kind of get that more stuff. It would be interesting to see if they could put all that bullshit, as Amanda Lusso would call it, behind them. Tory has done some stuff, yep, hefty, but she was conflicted. Her victory felt hollow. Her sensei cheated them, and now she doesn't feel like she could, and Meg conflicted to want to leave Cobra Kai, realizing that it isn't what she thought it was. It isn't helping her. And with the fact that Kreese, the person who actually helped her get back in there, has left them and kicked out of the dojo, it would make sense that she want to leave. And maybe she'll go to Eagle Fan, because Eagle Fan would make the most sense, because it would it'd help her teach more aggression. But it would take a long time for the rest of the Eagle fans and Miyagi-Dos to want to accept her back into the clan. And I do believe that she will likely turn into a good guy, but it may not happen. It may just stay a bad guy and try to change Cobra Kai. But who knows? At this point, all we know is that she's appearing in the next season and that she will indeed somehow mend things with Sam. If they became friends, I would find that quite cool, because they both badass characters in their own right. They are badass characters, and their personalities are half identical. They have things in common with each other, and what they see is not always what they like. Like, for example, Tory hated Samantha on Contact. Samantha hated Tory. Yes, well, Tory does steal stuff and Samantha's a rich girl. They have similarities. They're both females, trying to tough, upstanding females who both know karate and try to impress their senseis no matter what. And they try their best to win at anything and impress those, and try to be there for the ones they love. And they both have a loving relationship with each of their significant others. Samantha, it's Miguel, and for Tory, it's Robby. And I think that could work out, because, well, the only reason they can't stop fighting over each other is because they're having it over a petty reason. Samantha obviously still has her said feelings for Robby, which explains why she's getting payback on him by making out with Miguel in front of her. In the episode of Cobra Kai Season 4, if you guys are still here and you go, wait, why am I revealing spoilers? I warned you that I was going to spoiler it. Spoiler. Or spoiler alert. But nonetheless, in one episode, Samantha, seeing Tory there, decided to make out with Miguel, kiss Miguel right in front of Tory to make her jealous. But basically recreating what Tory did to Samantha with Robby. And basically Tory got back at her by doing it with, dancing around with Robby. And basically, it's going to be fascinating to see how they can mend things up. Maybe they won't. Maybe they're like a Ross and Rachel new generation version. They can't get along. They refuse to become friends and get along with each other. But it would be badass, because naturally they're just both badass characters, and they do have some qualities similar to each other. Not all of it, but it's like with Robby and Miguel. They have similarities to each other. And maybe they don't always like what they see. Now, I would love to see what that happens. And her becoming a good guy would be such a fascinating idea. It'd be fascinating to see her become a good guy and see what that could happen. And the fact that 5, Robby could become a good guy too, that'd be a fascinating thing to do. It may not happen, but you gotta have an idea for that. Number 6, Julie Pierce. Now, Julie Pierce is the character from the next Karate Kid and hasn't really appeared that much. To see her reappear in the series would be golden. May it happen? Maybe. Who knows, but I would like to see if she'll play a role. I can see why some people did indeed theorize back in season 3 and 4 she would pop up. She didn't. Watching the seasons back to back and watching all the seasons, I can see why she didn't appear in 3 and 4. Jolo and all the actors have confirmed that they're introducing characters from the classic films just slowly and carefully, providing them as just cameos or mentionings and then making them appear. I do love how at the end of season 4 they tricked you in thinking that he would get help from Julie, but instead it was Chosen. And I like how Jacob Bertrand, who plays Hawk, hinted at the fact that, he wanted to see Chosen. So since Chosen's joined the cast of Cobra Kai in season 5, it makes me believe that Chosen will help him. And yeah. And another thing is that I want to see the next Karate Kid references. Now, the next Karate Kid is indeed canon to the Miyagi-verse, as I like to call it, where they basically, any person or character that interacted with Mr. Miyagi is canon. The reboot is not really canon, nor is the cartoon. Here's the thing. There is indeed a DC Comics named The Karate Kid, which is where the Karate Kid franchise got its name from. And then Karate Kid, there's the Karate Kid movies, then the Karate Kid cartoon and game, which are their own thing. The cartoon went its own way and turned them into a superhero adventuring group. That was its own thing. So that isn't canon to the Miyagi-verse. So don't expect any cartoon superpower villains to appear, since Cobra Kai's kept the grounded aesthetic. And don't expect any appearances from the reboot characters. Even though Will Smith is attached to the project, it's unlikely we're going to get any appearances from the Jaden Smith 2010 reboot, as it's so far and varied from the source material. Even though it's a one-off, unfortunately, that's the way it's got to stay. Even if it's a cool, good, decent or good reboot, if it's a one-off and it stays one, it stays one. But nonetheless, I would like to see the next Karate Kid get referenced quite a lot in the series, and we never see that, but I'd love that. Now, yeah, so that is basically it for this first part. Make sure to check out part 2, which will hopefully be much shorter than this. It's around 17 minutes, so let's wrap it up. So you guys know what to do. Make sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you don't miss any of that content. And I'll see you lovely guys later for part 2.